Evening, everyone. We will call this hearing to order. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This is our second hearing on proposed changes to Title 39 of Columbus City Code, which governs the work of our Office of Diversity and Inclusion. As a recap, on August 26th, I chaired a hearing to discuss these proposed changes that were brought to us by our City Attorney's Office and our Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Based on the feedback that was received from residents and this council, several changes have been made to that proposal and to those amendments. Tonight, our City Attorney's Office and our Office of Diversity and Inclusion will provide a joint presentation of the changes made since the last meeting. Following the presentations, we will move on to public comment, closing remarks, and next steps from there. And I just want to, before we even get into the presentations, just want to say thank you to the administration, to our Office of Diversity and Inclusion, as well as to our city attorney for taking a second look at this. And I can say that I am pleased with the changes that have been made and really excited about the fact that we were able to really narrow that scope to ensure that we are continuing to deliver for the residents of Columbus, but more importantly, to also make sure that our Office of Diversity and Inclusion is able to do that transformational work for our residents. And with that, I want to thank my colleagues who are here with me. Before we get into presentations, any opening remarks from any of my council members? Seeing none, okay. Again, I want to thank President Pro Tem Rob Dorans, Councilmember Remy, Lourdes Barroso de Padilla, my vice chair, and also Councilmember Beatty for joining us this evening. With us tonight, again, we have our Deputy City Attorney and Chief Legal Counsel, Laura Baker Morris, is with us. Director Jenkins and A.J. Powell from the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. And with that, I will turn the floor over to you all.
Thank you, Chair Bankston, Vice Chair Barroso de Padilla, council members. Just to open it up, prior to, we wanted to look at some things that were going on in Title 39, just to clean it up, one, but then two, to make sure that we stayed in compliance with different federal guidelines, particularly Amendment 14. So currently what we're looking at right now is we receive feedback from this council body as well as our small business community, and we are still receiving feedback from that community all the way up till the legislation is put forth. We are also receiving feedback from the City Attorney's Office as well as the administration and all of City of Columbus. Three major changes that we're making with this work are defined here on the screen. We are retaining the workforce diversity language within the Title 39, and we can go into more detail with that at a later in this session. We are also looking at and making sure that we distinguish regional business enterprise as a verification, not a certification. We noticed that was a clear point of clarity that we needed to make. And then also what we want to do is identify program members, meaning a business certified as an MBE, SRBE, or WBE application. So we want to make sure that we define that in this language as well. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to AJ.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Chair Bankston. Vice Chair Barroso de Padilla, council members, my name is A.J. Powell. I'm a supplier development specialist in ODI. I'm going to start with updates to workforce diversity. We are retaining references in this language to workforce diversity. ODI is not directly responsible for the recruiting or hiring process at the city. But we do want to instead make sure that this section speaks to the broader value, ensuring that the city's workforce continues to reflect the socioeconomic diversity of the residents we serve. The updated language clarifies this concept. It remains a guiding principle within the city code, and it clearly distinguishes it from the operational responsibilities of human resources and civil service. Next, we're going to look at the Regional Business Enterprise Verification Program. ODI has been granted this new authority known as verification. It is intended to allow us to verify and track Ohio-based businesses. That's what RBEs are going to be. We removed the references to the Regional Business Enterprise to avoid confusion regarding which designations receive are able to participate in our programs and are able to be included, identified, and eligible for certification benefits. As you'll see here in the side-by-side, we have withdrawn that definition to be added to the code at this time. To support this structure, we've also removed the references to regional business enterprise programs in areas where it could be misinterpreted as a certification category as well. In short, this change helps us maintain a consistent statewide approach to participation, ensures that local and regional businesses are recognized appropriately. And with that, I will hand it off to the City Attorney's Office, who will walk us through how these terminology updates appear in the code and what they mean moving forward.
Good evening, Chair Bankston and Vice Chair Brosa de Padilla. The City Attorney's Office is here to talk a little bit about the definition of program member. We think that there was some lack of clarity previously about the changes that we made throughout Title 39 to strike the actual language that said MBE, WBE in a various number of sections of Title 39. And through the course of conversation since the last meeting, we came to understand that we had understood that the definition of program member was actually going to be more expansive rather than less expansive. And so those areas where we were striking the language MBE/WBE, it wasn't to eliminate, it was to allow it to be broader. And so the definition of program manager that we have proposed is inclusive of all certified entities that are within a program that the City Council has authorized pursuant to legislation. So as an example, right before you now, with the Title 39 changes in the legislation itself, the enabling legislation, it authorizes the creation of an SBRE program. And so members who are program members who are SBREs will be able to avail themselves of whatever bid discounts and/or incentive credits the Office of Diversity and Inclusion might feel is appropriate on a given project. Similarly, in the future, if there is a disparity study that updates the data that we have for our region, and there's a determined to be disparate impact for a particular group, MBEs and WBEs within that particular, who have demonstrated that kind of disparity, would also potentially be able to take advantage of bid discounts and/or incentive credits or other program issues that the Office of Diversity and Inclusion feel are appropriate in the event that Council turns on a program for MPEs and WBEs at that point in the future. So program member now replaces all of those specific acronyms throughout Title 39. And you can see it right there.
So we have a couple other examples of where we replace the specific language with just program member to encompass all of those designations. So moving forward, what we want to do is continue to make sure that we strengthen our local businesses, continue to make sure that we strengthen our regional economy, as well as support all of our small businesses. This is one way that we can streamline the work that we're doing, make sure that we are focused on small businesses as a whole, but then also when we move forward, as Laura suggested or implied, that we looking at a future disparity study, what that can help us do within this language without having to come back to Title 39 and make additional changes. All we need to do is get your council's approval to turn these things on or off, depending on the disparity studies findings. And that is it for our presentation.
Thank you, Director. Just going back really quickly to the program member clarification. MBE, WBE, the new regional ones, those are mentioned at some point in code, correct? And then it goes through and cleans it up to just say program member elsewhere, is that correct?
Correct. So okay. MBE, WBE is defined in our code and put within the program member, underneath the program member umbrella, so to speak.
Got you. But in that program member piece, if we were to ever add or create new ones, would that have to be entered back into the code, or would that be in the manual somewhere?
If we were creating new
If you were creating
designations, not the current ones that we have currently under program member, which is MBE, WBE, and SRBE definition.
Got you. And I know one of the, I think, clearer distinction changes that stood out to me, I think, is this not removing the word diversity from workforce diversity, which was, I think, a pain point for many of us here when we talk about our workforce. Can you talk about, or maybe Deputy City Attorney, you can as well, what got us back to how we, are clear on that and okay there?
Thank you, Chair Bankston. So we had a number of conversations regarding the language that we were using in that particular provision of the code. And at the end of the day, we focused in on what the actual Office of Diversity and Inclusion does as pertains to employment actions within the city, and realized that the role of the department is to be a resource for human resources, but they were not actually directing any particular hiring practices or policies. And so we tried to then go back and clarify what the actual role of the department is, as also to talk about now this new expanded look at what diversity means, encompassing socioeconomic as well as our small businesses, and just, again, making sure that the workforce of the city has an opportunity to be reflective without in any way, shape, or form designating that it shall be reflective of any particular race, ethnicity, gender, et cetera.
Thank you for that. And then lastly from me, and then I'll open it up for my colleagues, if you could just provide Director, and if you want to chime in as well, Deputy City Attorney, even since our last hearing, there have been some evolutions that have happened in the landscape of this work. When we talk about other cities that have come under investigations, and things of the nature, as well as some major shifts that have happened in the work at the federal level in this. Can you just give some color to that? And the reason why, there's no question here, but I just, when we talk about how what we're doing here is really to strengthen this work and strengthen this work for the long term and for the city. If you just put some color on what has just happened in the past 90 days since we had our first hearing, and as to why we are doing this and how this is going to strengthen us in the future.
So what I've seen with my colleagues in other cities is that, particularly within Boston and Austin, they recently received DOJ letters in regards to language that they had just on their website and some of their practices within that space. Laura can speak to what those lawsuits look like or what those investigations look like. And then also we have currently been under several different lawsuits, I believe several different investigations, so Laura can speak to those as well. In regards to what we've seen, which is why we're looking at our certification, the US DOT which initially started small business initiatives and started looking at MBE, WBEs, and it's kind of like the golden book when it comes to certifications. Moved away from MBE, WBE certification altogether, and now they only certify SBE, which is small businesses in general. Now, we were already moving and looking at what does that look like for us as a city. Under Amendment 14, you have to have a race and gender neutral program when you're looking at small businesses. We have not brought that online yet, and we needed to make these revisions to bring that certification online. And so for us, it is moving in the direction of staying in compliance with the federal government on several different levels, but then also making sure that we have a robust program that still identifies businesses in need.
Thank you. And I know too, if you could speak to, as we're moving to this new small regional business enterprise verification and the program, again, strengthening it so that we can take the necessary steps. Can you talk a little bit about what those next steps are as far as availability study and what that will mean and how that will position you and your team?
Yes, I appreciate this opportunity to speak to that. So we currently have an availability study available to the public. We have an RFP out. You'll see two different packages. One is for the data collection of that availability study. We want to see what businesses are in our market. We are asking for ownership and designation of ownership. So that MBEWB, we want to capture that information, whether you're a veteran, whether you're LGBTQAI+, we want to know who our businesses are and who owns those businesses. We also want to know what sectors you're in, where we're asking for a lot of data from this community so we can make sure that we're, when we move to a goal setting process, which we will, we want to make sure we're setting those goals comparable to our community and what's in our community, who's in our community. So the availability study on the data side, that RFP is out currently. We're also looking for, we have a current RFP open for the engagement. So we want to not only pull the data, but we also want to talk to the businesses. So we felt like we need to separate these two packages and just manage them from the office jointly. All communication going through the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. So we have those two packages out now. We will be running a shelter market. That'll be new in 26 as well. We're looking at that designation, non-race and gender-based focus on that as well. And then toward the end of 26, our hope is to put out a disparity study to identify if there are any gaps in the market, even with these race, gender-neutral programs.
Thank you. Open the floor to my colleagues. Madam Vice Chair.
Director, I have two questions. My first question is, one, how are we informing folks about what the changes are, right? How are we communicating to everyone? Because I think when we make code changes, sometimes we make code changes to clean up code. Sometimes there was various reasons why we made these changes, but how are we communicating that to all of the folks who use our services and look and seek certification? And then secondly, will these code changes affect any of the services that folks would receive from the city? So any of the benefits of certification, any of the other offerings that we've had, would that affect that experience?
So to your first question, the outreach has already begun. So we've had several meetings with small business owners, different groups that we partner with within the office. And so those meetings will continue through the end of the year. We will be notifying all of our certified businesses of these potential code changes if they move forward through council. And then we are looking to do a robust rollout of the new programming, because there are going to be new programs that individuals will qualify for going into 26. So we are looking for diverse firms to help us with that rollout to make sure that we reach a diverse population. With your second question, the major change that will be taking place here is the goal setting process. So previously, we would set goals based on a business owner's race or gender. Currently, we have to move into a space where we're setting goals based on the size of business. And those sizes can be defined, and AJ can explain a little bit more around how we define those businesses, because it's a little complicated in regards to taking 25% of the SBA and what they have set their small business standards at, but right-sizing that for the city of Columbus. But what we're looking at is a small business focus now by setting those goals, and also a shelter market. And this will also be for our small businesses. One point that I do want to make from moving from a MBE, WBE goal setting process to a SBE goal setting process, 96% of the businesses that we have certified currently will fall into that small business category. So making sure that we are still servicing the community as a whole, but then also making sure that we are complying with the USDOT, SBA, and SBE programming.
Sorry. So it doesn't necessarily water down any of the experience that they would have or the benefits that they would have of being certified. I guess that's what I'm trying to get to, because I feel like if you follow this, I think we get into a lot of the technicalities and legalities of it. And so if I was a small business owner, I'd be like, brass tacks, what does this mean for me? Is it still worth it for me to get that certification? And am I going to get everything? Because, it's not an arduous process, but it is a process. It's one more thing that folks need to do. So would you say that it waters down that experience, or is it still beneficial to those folks?
I think it's still very beneficial, including the programs that we're adding to, the benefits that we're adding to these particular programs. In partnership with the Department of Development Small Business, our goal is to make sure that these businesses receive a robust offering, not just from the City of Columbus, but from all of our partners that work, our ESOs is what they're defined as, that work with our small businesses. So we want to make sure that we ramp that up even more in 26.
Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Beatty.
Yeah, so would you imagine that the small regional business, that'll have its, that, and I know that's gonna be kind of the small regional business, so that'll have its own certification process?
Yes, and so to kind of add some clarity to Councilmember Rosa Padilla's question, for all of our certified businesses that meet that small business category, that 96%, they will receive a letter, and that letter will just simply ask, do they want to add this to their certification? So the City of Columbus stacks certification, so you can be minority, women-owned, as well as a small business. And so there won't be any added paperwork needed to go into that small business certification.
Okay, so you're telling me, and I'm sorry, I'm just not as familiar, so there is already a small business certification?
No, we're asking council to activate that small business
Okay.
certification.
And so we would be looking at a situation where there are current vendors and otherwise that are just, they're not in any program. So now to keep or to be able to be part of this program member benefit, those businesses would have to certify now.
Correct. If there
Okay.
are small businesses out there that are not certified with the city at all in any way, shape, or form, they would have to come get certified with us
Right.
to get that
That'll provide
designation.
you with more information and
Correct.
statistics and things like that. I know that your office also does a lot of sponsorship and outreach. Is there anything that would prohibit you from, sponsoring, Latino Chamber or anything like that?
Not as long as I sit in this seat, sir.
Okay. Okay. That's the end of my questions.
Thank you. Any other questions before we go to public comment? All right, seeing none, I will move on to the public comment portion. And we have, as of 12 p.m. deadline today, we received one request for in-person testimony from Ms. J. Avery Frost, who's here with us today, so I'm asking her to come at this time. Welcome back. I don't think I have to explain the rules to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good
Thank
evening,
you.
actually. Good to see everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Councilmember Bankston and Council, for your time today. Thank you for having another hearing. We appreciate another opportunity to come and speak. But I'm here once again to voice my concerns related to the changes to Title 39. I will not belabor the point, but I do understand where you're coming from. I understand the fiscal position. I understand the legal position as presented. However, I don't feel, that it's necessary at this time. And it feels like the city is acting on, as to now, unrealized threats. So the change as proposed, it doesn't really protect the ones that you say that you want to protect. It does broaden the certification, and it does add a whole host of other enterprises who can now be in the quote-unquote shelter market. So that doesn't actually make it easier for businesses who have been disenfranchised to participate. But I do, and I have to always say, I appreciate the efforts of Director Jenkins and his team to inform the community regarding the proposed changes. I was on a hearing earlier this week, or last week, and I know there's one coming up this week. And I am glad to hear of the availability study. That is a positive step. But related to these changes, when you concede ground, it is hard to regain it. This may seem prudent, but it does feel conciliatory. Just as millions today are unhappy with the Senate Democrats for folding after 40 days, I'm entirely disappointed in this council and the administration for this particular move after decades of strides that have been made in this particular arena. Also, it's Veterans Day Eve, and so I think that's the timing just sucks. It doesn't feel great. So I do want to say thank you to the veterans, not just those who have served on the battlefields, but those who have served ahead of me to make sure that stuff like this does occur. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Avery, for your testimony and for your continued advocacy. I know that you and your family have a legacy in this space and continue to do that work. And so thank you for walking alongside us. I don't think that this is an easy decision for any of us on this dais, and don't take it lightly. I think that's why we wanted to slow this down to make sure that we could narrow it as much as possible. Again, this is about ensuring that we do what's necessary to get back and make sure that it's a strengthened program, that we are continue to be in compliance, but not, again, like I said, overly compliant, that we are meeting the bare minimum, but also, again, ensuring that we are not exposing the city at risk. I have a dual role that I have to serve, and that is at sometimes a conflict with each other. So I appreciate you, and because I know that you will continue to work with us, continue to push us to make sure that we don't lose that momentum, that we regain that ground. So thank you again for everything you're doing. Director or Deputy City Attorney, is there anything that you all wanted to address or in those comments or if there's any further questions?
Not so much in the comments. I do want to thank Avery for her partnership and leadership in this space. She has been a strong advocate for this work for many years, and I do appreciate working with her and looking to do so in the future as well. I would like for AJ, just for your information as well as those watching and those who may watch, just to give some detail and clarity on how we will be looking at that SBE and the different programs, making sure that we hit them in the right categories. So can you explain that a little bit?
Thank you. When determining how we were going to define what SRBE was and what businesses fell within that space, we looked to the Small Business Administration's listing of codes on what determines a small business. Now, they break it up by commodity code, so every business that does business with the City of Columbus that comes through our B2G Now system tells us which commodity codes they use, and that helps us determine where they would land on that listing. Additionally, they've given us their revenue and their number of employees. The SBA determines that the size standard based on the either one of those two things. Either it's going to be your revenue or it's going to be the number of employees you have. We decided to right size that, as many cities have done around the country, because it's a national standard. It can get pretty large and you're not really able to target small businesses the way you want to without right sizing that. Our determination when we looked at all of our data was we were able to determine that 25% of the revenue size standard is what was best for us, and 50% of the employee size standard. So essentially a business can look up their commodity code to the SBA size standard, divide that by 4 if it's revenue, divide that in half if it's number of employees, and they'll know if they fall within the SRBE program and certification for us. So that's how, because we had all this data already, it's how we were able to determine the number of people who are already certified by the City of Columbus that will automatically land in the SRBE program.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Ms. President Pro Tem Dorrance?
Thank you, Chair. Director, just in response to the comments from Ms. Frost, so, we've talked about where we are today and sort of the external factors of why we're here. Just want to ask this question out loud to you, and I think I know the answer, but just to sort of put it on the table, as the city has been involved in litigation repeatedly on these issues with the Trump administration, as other cities have, as the legal landscape will likely continue to change throughout not just the next year, but into the years to come, can we expect, your office to continue to bring back to us, to be responsive to where we can do more, where the city, when Ms. Frost was talking about the gains that have been made and seeing things walk back, that is something that does not sit easy for folks up here, and rightfully so. So again, just asking the question out loud, as there's been a lot of work that's gone into what is being proposed here right now, both what came before the body at the previous hearing, but also here today. And just to say it out loud, I think this council would expect, and just want to ask that question out loud to you, to give you the opportunity to respond, to say, when we are able to do more, what will be the expectation of your office to bring to this body?
I appreciate that question. Currently, we had some exposure. And this was due to some stale data. This was due to some things that we need to clean up. So now, to right size that and make sure that we do not have that same exposure, we are taking steps to do that with the availability study, as well as the way we're going about restructuring some of our code language. Next step is the disparity study, and moving in and using the availability study information to move into that disparity study. And that disparity study will then determine whether or not, how hard we can push to get back to where we are currently, but then to go further than where we are. In this period in time, I plan to utilize the resources of the city of Columbus, i.e. our partners all around Columbus, to make sure that we are standing up strong, diverse businesses to take advantage of opportunities here at the city, but then beyond the city as well. Not only am I asking, and we'll be partnering with our partners outside of the city itself, city government itself, I will be also leaning in and supporting and working with all of our departments to make sure that their practices, their bid process still aligns with that diversity inclusion goals. So we have a lot of work to do internally. We have a lot of work to do externally, and I think this is a time of great need and change. I do not look at this as a point where we need to back down, we need to cringe, we need to be fearful. I look at it as a change, and it's time to change and be more intentional about the work that we're doing internally and externally.
Thank you, appreciate that.
I just wanted to say, Avery, you have been a amazing friend and partner in the work that we've been doing, and I just wanted to speak directly to what you said. We are in an extraordinary position where we have to make very tough choices and weighing out so many different options, and it is I was going to say a word that would not be acceptable in these here chambers, but it is a very difficult position for us to be in, and not one that any of us nor would choose, nor do we like, nor do we want to be here. And I think, as we continue this fight together for all of the values that we have, and living our values and the things that are important to us as a council, as we continue to resource programs, as we continue to stand up programs, as we continue to look at how we protect our folks during this time, it is important for us to also have truth tellers standing with us. And I just wanted to raise up what you said, because it's important. It's important right now in the times where we're making choices, because we have to weigh out different things, right? How do we how do you keep a grant, or how do we keep these funds, or how do we ensure that the city of Columbus can continue to run? When are we picking fights? When are we choosing battles during this time is challenging. And so I just want to thank you for both being a truth teller and still being a partner and still hanging in there with us and still pushing us as well, because that's what we're going to need, because we're only at year one. We're not even done with year one, right? And we don't know what's going to come. And so I just wanted to very clearly acknowledge what you said, because I know that we certainly feel that every day and feel it in the decisions that we have to make here. So thank you.
Along that same theme, so, you know, your objection has been noted, your disappointment has been noted. But as a representative, and I think it would be good for the record, and you're on top of things, could you articulate what the fear and concern of your members would be by this particular change? What you're obviously, you wear two hats: Freedom Equity, you're talking to a lot of small businesses, and then also Black Chamber, et cetera, and other organizations that you're involved with. Could you kind of unpack and maybe articulate some of the concerns and fears that your members or your circle would have?
Yeah, I think that honestly, the biggest concern would be the dilution of the market. So in a space where you already feel like you are having a hard time competing, to then take away the certifications, because I hear what you're saying, but it's a designation now. With this change, MBWBE is MBWBE is a designation more so than a certification. So you still have to go through the onerous process, but it doesn't do anything for you at that particular level of government. And so if you open up the doors to who can be in it, generally speaking, SBA size standards are like 500, you're a small business. So 125, if we go, or 250 is considered small depending on the industry. I know there are calculations and that kind of thing. So it'll feel like the road to participate and compete is already that much more arduous when you change this landscape. And shoot, we couldn't even get a shelter market after disparity study showed a disparity. So now we're putting in a shelter market when we don't even have a reason to. So it feels, for people who I work with, it feels difficult because I hear all the time, I can't get a contract with the city. I want to do business with the city. I've been trying to do business with the city, but I cannot. Excuse me. And so this particular change, I know that it would deter people. I don't think that you're going to get extra people, extra diverse people certifying. I think you're going to get extra people certifying, and I just don't think it's going to get at what you're trying to get at.
And so do you believe that there'll be a consequence of and again, I'm not asking you to pull out the crystal ball, but do you believe that there'll be, do you believe that there'll be, I know you said that you believe that less people may do the designation. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that less people from these underrepresented groups will receive business from the city? Do you believe that that could be an outcome? 100%.
The reason I feel that confident about it is because if you look at our businesses, apples to apples, balance sheets to balance sheets, and we're looking at competitive bids side by side, just different firms have different access and capabilities related to lines of credit, related to supplier relationships, related to a whole slew of things. And so some businesses are already starting at a deficit when they're going in to compete against those businesses. And so they already know that in private sector. And so there are places and times where people will certainly say, no, I'm not gonna go down that route. I've seen people take that stance with MBWE certification over the last few years in relation to what happened after the last disparity study. So people will, unless there's a clear carrot, people aren't gonna like bare their whole business soul to you guys just to get the certification if they don't feel like they're gonna get business. That's just not realistic.
Okay. All right, thank you for that feedback.
Thank you again for your advocacy. And I do just want to underscore again that we don't take this lightly. And I think that for us to say that there's an unrealized threat is just simply not true. We see it across the country happening. And again, for us to get to where we are, there's case law out of the Sixth Circuit Court that we have to do this. These types of steps to get back to where we need to be. And so for me, again, I understand the frustration of this moment that we all find ourselves in, but it is, in fact, the necessary step for us. And so, again, I would just ask that you continue to advocate, continue to be there with us as we go through this period of time so that we can do what's necessary, again, to strengthen our legal standing to continue to do the work. So, again, thank you for your advocacy. And again, we only have one speaker for today. And again, ask that folks continue to engage with the Office of Diversity and Inclusion as we work through this. Before I close, is there any closing comments from any of my colleagues? Thank you again for you all being here. As I stated, I think, in the first hearing, I want to be clear that for us and for me, it has become clear that this is something that we have to do, not simply because of the time we find ourselves in, because of the current administration. I will reiterate that we will not be, and I will not be bullied by the White House. But as a fiduciary of the city, I'm going to do everything that I can to ensure that we mitigate our risk and that we ensure that we are in compliance so that we can do this work effectively with the most cover. And that is what brings us here today. And so it has been made clear to me and this council that in order to proceed with the necessary work of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion and to protect the city from future liability, the proposed changes that we see today must be adopted. And I believe that the updated language shared tonight is a more modest, focused, and tailored set of changes that meets the direction that this body had given in our following hearing. And I will say this to our community, that in this moment, this work and the work of cities and the works of bodies like this are under attack all across this country. But this moment causes us to really seek intentionality. Many folks have heard me say all the time, when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, those are nothing but words unless there is intention behind it. And I can tell you that working with Director Jenkins, I have seen the intention and I have seen our spend with in small businesses and with diverse businesses increase in his time and his leadership. That's intentional. If we as a community say that we believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion, it is going to be intentional on us how we show up in this moment for each other. Intentional about where we spend our dollar and who we do business with. That doesn't take a statement. It doesn't take a quota. It takes us as a city proving our values and saying that this is what we believe and that we're going to do it no matter what. And so I believe that we will meet that moment and we will do everything that we can to get back to a place that we can do with greater intentionality. But we will first have to take this step that is necessary, but has been unnecessarily brought upon us. And so in that moment, I will raise my hand to meet it, and I ask the community to come and join us. So that again, when you're out shopping, think about where you're shopping. When we're out doing business, think about where you're doing business. We have proven and shown that this is not about handouts, but this is about providing opportunity. And that when you provide opportunity, those that have been left out rise to the occasion every single time. And so we will continue to fight where we can to ensure that we provide opportunity to our residents, to ensure that our workforce is reflective of the city of Columbus and its makeup. And I will be unapologetic about that work, and we will do everything we can to defend it going forward. As a result, we will aim to place this legislation back on the council agenda for November 17th council meeting, and it will be taken up for consideration for passage by my colleagues. Any resident interested in providing feedback prior to Monday can still reach out to my office, reach out to Jonathan Brown in my office, that's jbbrown@columbus.gov, or JP Dorval, JPDorval@columbus.gov. We want to continue to dialogue and want to continue to work with you in community as we get through this moment. Again, thank you, everyone, and that concludes our hearing.